Carlos, when people talk about closure, what are they really looking for emotionally?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's a psychological tool. It's been around for a little while now. We talk about closure from the end of a relationship, or maybe from other things. It could be different types of relationships too, not only romantic ones. It could be the end of a friendship. It could be maybe someone that we don't see from our family member, but also sometimes closure from a period of our life as well. And yeah, we find that a lot of people talk about it. It's really hard to define though, because what we realize when we're talking to someone that comes in, for example, comes to see a psychologist, and I say, look, I really want closure from this. How do I do it? We find that really closure comes from within, so to speak, and you can get all the information from outside. You might even be able to get the other person to have a chat to you, the person that's involved, that is, and maybe even help you with the closure. But if it doesn't come from within and we don't accept that we want to move forward, because that's what closure is. It's deciding to finalize one stage of our lives and start another. So it starts with that, with us really knowing what it means and then implementing what we want to do.
So I hear the term a lot, and I think a lot of people think, maybe a bit like me, that it's all new age mumbo jumbo. And I feel like people, you keep talking about within all the time. I keep thinking it's something people want other people to do. Like they go, I need closure from this, so I need the other person to either apologise or do something. And I always think, I don't think that's always possible, is it?
Exactly right. You hit the nail on the head, and that's why we find that the best closure has to come from within. But you're right. Most people, they want to feel or to hear something from outside. And a lot of the time it's from that other person. You're right. And that's why we have to change that focus, turn it around and say, hang on, no, the only way you're going to get closure if you accept closure, if you decide this is enough and now I'm going to move forward. I've decided that this part of my life, that stage, whatever that event, is finalised. I don't need other things to help with that closure. So that's what we find in clinical work, that a lot of people come, exactly what you say, wanting these other solutions that they're not going to get. So the focus in therapy is to turn that around, yes. And hopefully now the person's got more control because they don't require anything from outside. But you're right, sometimes it can feel a little bit airy-fairy in the sense that, come on, man, just keep going. It's fine. It's finished.
It's gone. Yeah, and I think it's the answers. I've just thought that when people talk about it, why did that happen? Why did I lose that job? I need the answers to why. And that can be a lot in closure, can't it? Or why did that person do that to me? I need the answers, otherwise I can't get closure. So if we're really stuck on wanting the answers, how do we dislodge ourselves from that thinking? Because, I know sometimes you can't get the answers.
That's exactly right. But, it's human nature, It started all the way back from Socrates, who used to ask a lot of questions. The Socratic method, actually, they call it, asking questions to find out how people think and show to themselves that what they were thinking was probably not correct without him even saying anything, just asking questions. So, and us wanting to have meaning. Why is that like this? Why is it like? You see kids, ask questions. That's how they learn. So it's a human thing to ask questions, and that's fine, to look for meaning, to search for purpose, because we have a higher state of consciousness than all the other animals. We require more than just food and sleep and rest and reproduction, and we look for meaning in our life. And the only way to find it is by asking and also to be a bit skeptical sometimes and say, hang on, that's not the right thing. I'm going to look for the right one. So that's fine, that journey of knowledge. But the problem is when we start to look for meaning where there isn't any. And things happen randomly sometimes, and you go in with a great plan to start a job or to start a relationship, and it doesn't end the way you want it. But, there's no real meaning in it. It's the way life took you and the other person, and we have to, in one way, accept that we've done what we could, or maybe we could have done more, and maybe take that to the next relationship.
Okay, well, are there practical ways that we can create our own sense of, I guess, closure if we need it after a breakup or a major life event, Carlos?
100%. I love the saying, get back on the horse, as they say. I think that's wonderful. It does work for a lot of things. Don't wait. Just get out there. I think entertain yourself. Have some activity. Make a list of things you want to do that day, because what happens when we want closure, when a person is obsessed with this closure that they know deep inside they're not going to get, because what they really want is, like you said, Sherilyn, it's almost like a justification of why the result was different to how they imagined it. And the other person may have a totally different perspective on things, and we cannot ever be happy with somebody giving us closure. As we said at the start, we have to do it ourselves. So we gain control of our life. We decide, okay, this is finalized. We're going to start this next venture. The way we do that is by taking the focus off it, because the brain, as soon as you start thinking about something, doesn't matter what it is, it'll give it to you a bit more, because it feels that, okay, we need to think about this. We need to resolve this. That's what the brain does. It's great at resolving problems, and it gives you anxiety in order to do it. So take the focus off it, make a list, start doing exercise, meet up with friends, do some fun activities. Fun, never underestimate the power of fun. And suddenly, a day goes by, a week, time is your best friend in these things, and suddenly you start thinking about this less, and when you do think about it, decide, what? I don't need that type of closure. I have full control of my own closure, and I'm deciding that I'm moving forward. And just by making those affirmations or those statements, if you like, again, sometimes they sound airy fairy to other people, but the way the brain works, when you talk, we call it self-positive talk in clinical psychology, when we say things out loud, the brain picks up on it, and you'd be surprised. You can actually convince your brain that, yep, you're closing this.
That's it. So I can hear all that. There's all these things we can do, but someone listening tonight who feels that they just can't move on without closure, they just can't do it. What's the very first step towards letting go?
Yeah, look, it depends on each situation, of course. And that person it depends on how long it's been, of course, and what the situation is. But let's just say it's an average situation, a breakup, and it was relatively mutual, or the other person decided to start it out of what they feel, out of nothing, everything was going well, and suddenly, we broke up. That happens, but it's never out of nothing. There's usually an accumulation of things, and it gets to a stage where maybe the other person decides to pull the plug. But so let's just say something like that, and say it's been happening for 2 months roughly. So if it's a year, now it's a bit a problem. It's a bit of a problem. A month is about okay. 2 months would be the cutoff point for something like that, and then 3 months it starts being a problem. But I've had people where people have been still on with this for a couple of years or even more. So the best thing to do is to maybe seek some professional advice and decide, okay, I really, really need to talk about this, because it sounds like they need to debrief first, talk about the situation, get it out of their system. They've probably spoken to their friends, they've probably spoken to family members, but that's not enough. Maybe a professional, maybe someone from outside of it, and just for that person to listen. And the right advice would be, okay, we need to start closure, but you have to start this yourself. And the way to do it is by, reforming your life to a better life. Create a lifestyle, a different lifestyle. So you change something, you change your behavior, and suddenly it's a bit like a domino effect. You start changing your mind. Start going to the gym, maybe pick up a musical instrument, maybe decide to go, I'm going to go down to the city a couple of times with my friend and so forth. Start adding things to your life and it'll become a little bit of that domino effect.
Carlos, you just made me think of something then. We've all got somebody in our life, or we've had somebody, it could be a family member, it could be a friend, who just can't let go of something. And it's like, here we go again. It's almost like, don't mention the war, here we go again. How do we broach that when they bring that up yet again? Because obviously they haven't had any closure there.
They haven't had any closure. And some people, in a way, it becomes a habit, I think, Sherilyn, too. Yeah. It's almost like, there's two reasons. One is a habit because it's not that they want to suffer, but they feel comfortable in that suffering. It's what they do. They feel like they're not letting go in a way because I don't want to let go. I actually really, really want to live my life through this. And look, that happens with serious cases when someone loses a loved one or a child and these sort of things.
Yes.
It's almost like by disclosure, I'm going to forget them. And so that's quite a tricky one, because we can still have those memories, and we know when we've had closure in that sense, in that serious type of incident, when you can look back, maybe yes, of course, time is a lot longer for these things. It might be a couple of years, and you can look at a photo and actually smile rather than cry when, that time I spent with this person, whoever it may be. But if it's something,
like a job. What if it's something that's well, we might think it's a little bit not trivial, but not as life changing. So it could be that someone did them wrong, or ripped them off for something, or I'm not talking like millions of dollars. I'm talking about they lost a job or they lost a promotion, and 5 years later, every time we see Barry, here we go again, that kind of thing. Like, do you think it's time to say, listen, Barry, I think you need to go to short? I mean, how do we broach it? How do we shut them down? And maybe all bit nicely and get them a bit of help? Like, how do we broach that?
Well, look, that's happened more often than what we think. It does happen. And I know even myself, when I was younger, I thought of a few things that happened. I wish, something with that person came into mind. I was a bit angry about it because none of us like injustice, and we feel like it wasn't just what happened to us. So we want, rather than closure, we almost want revenge. Yes. And so we want to do something just to feel like we're at par now. So that's really negative type thinking, and the only person we're hurting is ourselves. We carry that within us, and that other person probably doesn't even think about us. So it's not wise to do that because we can't help ourselves. Now, for that person, you've got to grab them aside and say, listen, really, the reality is it's been quite a while, and I know it's important for you. And I know it can still be important for you, but my main worry is the length of time this is happening, and it's kind of like an obstacle to your life. Why don't you talk to someone? Why don't you talk to a professional? Maybe start with your GP, and maybe by getting that type of help, you might be able to move on, but not so much closure, to move on from this in order, and remind them, the best type of revenge is success.
Yes.
When we move on from that person or from that thing or whatever it may be, that's the best part, and we feel so good about it, and we can just let go and feel lighter because that person is now not significant in our lives, and we just have to remind them and maybe give them an example that it has happened to you, and you've sought help or you've spoken to someone, and I can understand. Always give that empathy, that understanding, so the person knows that you have the best in mind for them.